So like at 41, I said to myself, I'm never going to get higher than I got, and I'm never going to get as high as I was. And this is what my life is. And I have no idea what my life could be if I put work into recovery. I was like, so like, why don't I just try that? Because like I had nothing with using. And I said, why don't I just try that? So like by the time Chris died, I wasn't like considering using. I'm not, I mean, like, I don't consider using. Like, my life is so much better, and I only have 6 years sober at this point, and it's only because I'm sober. Like, it's only because I try to do the next right thing, and I engage in the program, and I don't f that up, so like my life is getting so much better only because of it. So like relapse was not on the table around that. Like, I wasn't like, damn, I wish I could get f***ed up. It was like, just like, damn, I wish this hadn't happened.
Where you are now may not be where you came from. The choices you make today may spiral out of control or spin you in the right direction. Discover a riveting, true story of how Carlos Vieira nearly destroyed his life and lived to tell about it. Stand up, stand firm, believe, make it happen, and live through the madness. Knocking doors down along the way. And don't miss others telling their powerful stories on our podcast. Visit kddmediacompany.com.
Welcome into Knocking Doors Down from the Dopey Podcast. One you guys got to check out if you haven't. Dave, what's going on, good sir?
What's happening?
Living the dream.
How are you?
Living the dream, that's right. Hey, I got to ask real quick, for those, of course, on YouTube can see it, but are listening, you got an 1888 hat. What's the significance of that?
Oh, I work at a very famous deli.
Okay.
In New York City. It's called Katz Deli, and it was founded in 1888. So it's funny that you asked me. I was like, I'm not going to wear my Katz's hat because I don't want to give them too much press. And of course, you asked me about the hat.
Oh,
little product placement there. I see you.
I don't want to like look balding on your video, so I wear the hat.
Oh, well, I was curious. I didn't, New York's got so much cool freaking history. I haven't been there in 25 years or so, something like that. So I was just curious, but I could always edit out the name because they don't sponsor either of our podcasts, right?
Yeah, fuck them. Take out the name. But if you ever come to New York, I'll buy you a sandwich.
Hell yeah. Well, we'll have to do that for sure.
What would we have? What's California? Sushi?
Fuck if I know.
No, tacos.
California. We do got some bomb-ass tacos here, that's for sure.
Tacos and like that California fresh, whatever, like seafood and fucking healthy shit and all that good stuff.
Avocados.
For potential haters, I'm aware that sushi does not come from California, let alone America, but I'm just saying California does have some bomb sushi. But there is some bomb tacos, so if you ever make your way out here, there's a good taqueria that I will not mention because they don't sponsor us, but we'll go there.
I would love that. I would love to go to this non-mentionable taqueria.
It's very exclusive.
We shall not mention it.
Dude, I lived in California for years, and they had Taco Tuesday down the hill, and like tacos were like a quarter. Yeah. And like those were good times.
All Laker
and another
fans.
Undisclosed taqueria. Yes.
All Laker fans right now are like Taco Tuesday. Thank you, LeBron James. Where in California did you live?
I lived in Echo Park, and I lived in North Hollywood.
Nice,
okay.
Nice. NoHo.
Yeah, it was nowhere. When I was there, it was like fucking bad. I was in really bad shape that I might as well have been nowhere when I was there.
It's still the same, and I feel you. I lived in Hollywood. I lived right off Hollywood Boulevard, so I totally get what you're saying.
So you mentioned that you weren't in a good place. Was that kind of where a lot of this shit started for you, falling into your addiction, or did shit start way early and it was like, I'm going to get out west and I'll get cleaned up kind of mentality?
No, I mean, like, I was in rehab in Florida. Like, my addiction kind of started with weed in New York, and I was a great classic New York pothead, and it turned into heroin, and it got really bad in Manhattan. And then I eventually got shipped to Florida. And when I got shipped to Florida, I know I'm jumping ahead,
you're good.
But when I got shipped to Florida, the counselors in the rehab told my parents not to pay my rent. And I lived in low income housing in Manhattan. I had a beautiful apartment that was $300 a month, and the counselor convinced my parents not to enable me. So I was like, I'm going to move to California because I have friends there, and I can't really afford New York if I'm not paying $300. And so I went from rehab in Florida to Los Angeles, to live with two of my oldest and best friends, one of whom I used a shitload of drugs with. He promised me he wasn't doing heroin, but what he didn't tell me is that he had just started smoking meth. So when I got there, the meth arrived, and like that was just the beginning of a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, man, I'm off the H. No worries, you're good. But hey, I got this other shit that fuck, man.
I had a roommate like that too. They were all like, "Oh, we're so proud of you that you stopped smoking weed," while they're snorting OxyContin, and it was just kind of like, whatever. What are you gonna do?
It was an attempt, like my attempt in that situation was to go to California. Like I had produced television in my early 20s in Manhattan.
Right on.
And in my imagination, I was going to go to California and I was going to just smoke weed and I was going to get a job in LA producing a show and I was going to make it really big. And I got a job kind of associate producing a show, and my heroin addiction kicked back in so strong that in the bathroom, in the second drawer in the bathroom, I just kept needles in the public bathroom in the office, like a crazy person. It was so bad. Like the stories I could tell from LA, like it was I was working on a show called 9 on the Town, which was kind of like this bullshit, like, you eat a little bit, you go to the taqueria, you see the marinas and like all that kind of like magazine style show. Sure. Right. And they hired me to like, they wanted to do a story about Wiccans. So I had all these Wiccans come to our house because we could get a location fee out of it. And I was like deep in addiction, and all of these witches came to our house while my roommate's parents were there, and I was like totally nodding out into oblivion. It was just one pathetic thing after another. I didn't hold on to that job very long, and then I was just unemployed for many years in LA.
Oh, fucking shit.
Just
man.
couch surfing or what?
No, my girlfriend, I had a girlfriend, God bless her. She came, I met her, she was my best friend's girlfriend. It was a really kind of terrible story. She was my best friend's girlfriend, and we like had an affair, me and her. Right. And I couldn't live with the idea of her going back to him. And I had just started using heroin like in earnest then. And I like said, you have to leave him and come be with me. And then my whole heroin addiction really ramped up because of guilt, I think. Mm-hmm. And then me and her kind of went our separate ways, but she was from California and I was like lost. And I said, please come live with me. And she basically took care of me in Echo Park for another 6.5 years. Oh, and wow. It was like, I was on methadone and, kind of by downtown LA. Right. And basically I was like a house cat in her house. Like I didn't work. All I did was get methadone and cop dope. And it was sad days, tough times.
Yeah, that classic codependency, right? The she wanted to save you to fulfill herself, and you just wanted to continue to get high.
I just didn't. Yeah, I wanted to continue to get high. Like I didn't see what was happening. I was so hypnotized by the lifestyle, but not in the way you'd imagine. I was just like I'm the kind of drug addict that I don't think I would have made it in the streets very long. Like I need cable TV if I'm using, I need like ice cream sandwiches if I'm using. I was like the kind of heroin addict that gained weight on heroin because I would just lie around and eat and fucking smoke weed and still shoot dope. But it's terrible because I also took her hostage. And she was a great person, and she probably still is. The funniest thing was that we broke up in around, I want to say 2007. And I swear to God, within like a year of breaking up with me, she was like the vice president of a company. She was like making almost $300,000 a year. And now she's retired and owns a house in Woodstock and has like a beautiful life. So I'm happy she got away from me. It worked out.
Did she use as well?
No, she was just a stoner. She was just a stoner. Okay. Like a really prodigious stoner, and I'm sure she still is. but she didn't fuck with heroin or pills or anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, you talked about smoking weed. What point did you really start your foyer, so to speak, into any sort of drug use?
I was very late. I was a very late bloomer. I grew up in Manhattan. I went to this amazing public elementary school and public high school, and I wasn't interested in doing drugs at all. In fact, when my best friends would tell me about them doing drugs, I would think that they were like posers. I was like, you guys are fucking posers. But then I found that when I drank, it made me really nauseous. Like I was the kind of alcoholic where, like, when people say they would get sick when they would drink, or they had an allergy, I actually was allergic. Like I would drink and I would get really sick. And I got a job at a summer camp, and the last night, I was a waiter and I had a miserable experience. But the last night I was invited to a party with the kitchen staff, and they were all European, and I probably drank 17 screwdrivers. And I blacked out sick as fucking hell. And I knew I couldn't drink. And I think the next year I smoked a little bit of pot, and I was like, I really like how that feels. Right. And I was probably like a junior in high school. I was a junior in high school. And the first drug I did was acid at a Grateful Dead show at Madison Square Garden in 1991.
I guess if you're going to do acid, that's what better than a Grateful Dead concert.
Kind of makes sense, right?
I wasn't even into the Grateful Dead. I actually interviewed Jerry Garcia Band tour manager, this guy called Big Steve Parrish, right?
Oh, no shit.
I'm like a devoted Grateful Dead fan at this point. Mm-hmm. But back then I did not give a shit about the Grateful Dead, and I just wanted to try acid and hang out.
Right.
I mean, my drug addiction didn't kick in until I got to college, and I just became a stoner. I was in a band. I felt totally isolated. I didn't have friends. I felt totally alone. And I had one friend, and he loved smoking weed, and I liked smoking weed. And I was like, I'm in college, I should smoke pot every day. And I did. And I probably smoked pot every day from that first day till I was 40. You know what I mean? Wow. With a million other drugs coming in and out. And I messed with psychedelics in college, and I would take whatever kind of showed up. My heroin addiction didn't start until my early 20s. I guess I did heroin for the first time in school too, in college. But I was like, this is too strong. It was too. I like being a stoner. I miss being a stoner. I kind of gave it. I remember when I was in rehab, they have to write a letter to your drug, right? Right. And I think what I wrote was that heroin was the dirty whore that stole my beautiful girlfriend away from me, and my beautiful girlfriend was weed. You know what I mean? In my mind. Yeah. So that was the beginning.
So as a situation, how many attempts at rehab did you go through? Was it just the one in Florida, or was there others?
I probably went to every public detox in New York, literally, probably. I've been to I would guess 25 detoxes between New York and LA, where I would do it for a week because I would be too sick and I would be too broke and I couldn't handle kicking. Right. But in terms of proper rehab, I went to a proper rehab in Florida. It was called Renaissance, and now it's owned by the Karen Foundation. It was a big time fucking rehab. And I went to a kind of shitty rehab in upstate New York called Cornerstone, and I left there with a dude. My roommate was this guy from Long Island that would steal cases of Similac from Walmart and then sell them at the bodegas. And and I never shot heroin at that point. And he was like, you're a fucking idiot. He's like, you're wasting all this money. And he convinced me to leave treatment. And me and him, and I had money at home, and we left treatment and we went back to New York. And that's when I started shooting, was just leaving with some random guy. And then I shot dope for another 7 years or something.
Fucking shit.
Huh.
And then the last time I went to rehab, I went to a place called Mountainside in Connecticut, and that's where I met Chris.
Yeah.
And that was my last experience in treatment, and that was in 2011.
So then that was just a total cleanup at that point, everything, all drugs, pot, everything.
It was meant to do that, but it didn't do that. That was the plan. That was the plan. You know, my story is really about when I was in California, I found out that my mother had gotten leukemia.
Oh, fuck.
And I was on like 150 milligrams of methadone. And I didn't want her to die of leukemia while I was like a mess in California.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the decision to get off of methadone in Los Angeles. And I did it slowly, like over 7 months. Hold on, I'm sorry. And I did it super slowly. My dad's apartment has phones in every fucking
They still have those in New York?
Dude, when we started doing Dopey, okay, me and Chris would come here because I left Manhattan and I live on Long Island. Chris lived in Boston, and we needed a place to do it. So we would do it in my dad's apartment. And he has 2 phones in the kitchen, 2 phones in the living room, 2 phones in this room, and 2 phones in his bedroom. And he doesn't understand that that's a problem. Like, and it's like the beginning of Back to the Future when the phone rings. It's like all the clocks trying to like hell.
Does he have the Doc Brown hair? Because that'd be extra fucking awesome.
No. My dad is a very debonair, older Jewish man. He's very together, my dad. But what was I saying? Like, so I wound up kicking methadone in Los Angeles, and I came home, and I got to spend, I don't know, like 4 months with my mother, which was like amazing that could happen. And I didn't get clean, right? And I was smoking weed. I was kind of, as they say, dipping and dabbing, but I was just smoking weed, really. And then she died, and I met this woman, and within 6 months she was pregnant.
Oh,
okay, so by the time I got to 2011, we had a 2.5-year-old baby, and I was shooting heroin again, and I had to go to treatment. So I got out of treatment, and I tried to stay sober, and I tried to go to 12-step meetings and stuff, but I really didn't want to stay sober. Like, I just wasn't, it didn't fucking penetrate my head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to be sober, but I didn't want to stop using, and I didn't want to take suggestions, and I just wasn't ready, you know?
Yeah.
And then I kind of fucked around in Manhattan for a while, and I worked at Katz's, and I was a waiter. Okay. I was actually a manager at Katz's, and I was such a fucking mess in the restaurant on heroin. I would like eat food off customers' tables, and I would like pass out while working. And it was really, really bad. And they fired me, and I went to treatment. And when I got back, I became a waiter, and I was funny. Like, I would fuck with the customers, and I would be mean to the customers. And we decided to make a web series about it. And it was going to be called The Last Jewish Waiter. And it was about a waiter who hates waiting tables, and he wants to have a talk show. So he does a talk show while he waits tables. And we did that, and there was a lot of interest in it. And like the guys who made Anthony Bourdain's show gave me a deal, and they like, and we made this sizzle reel that wasn't that good. And I went to LA to pitch, and I was so trying to get my family back at the same time. Yeah. But my wife found out that I was using, and she was like, we're not going to get back together. And that's when I realized I had to get sober. It was at that point that I got sober because I was so obsessed with the idea of getting my family back together. Ever since my daughter's mother left me, I was obsessed with getting her back, like I had been obsessed with heroin or weed or anything, but more so because I felt like it made me a bad person that I wasn't with my family. And like when I say I woke up in the morning and I thought about them, and when I went to bed at night, I thought about them, and all I thought about all day was them. And all I would talk about with my friends was, how do I get them back? What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. Nobody wanted to see me because it's all I would talk about. And in the end, when she found out I was using, I went to AA, but and I shouldn't say that, I went to 12-step fellowship, and I went to the 12-step fellowship because I needed help with obsession more than anything. I had heard so many times that we can be relieved from the bondage of self, and our obsessions can be lifted, and I needed that. Yeah. And that's why I went to AA. And it was around that time that Chris Chris was really interested in The Last Jewish Waiter because I had gotten all sorts of attention, and like all sorts of magazines had written about it. And Chris liked attention, and he was like, "What can we do?" And I was like, "You can't do anything." But then we decided to start Dopey, and that's how it all started.
That's pretty cool. Jumping back a little bit is interesting because you talked about the, isolation and your only friend being, another dude that smoked weed. Do you think that's kind of what for you? It's always interesting if people trace back what really started them in it. I know for me, late bloomer, alcohol really didn't play a role until like 22, 23, 24, and it really was to get relaxed. These people that are pretty cool that I enjoy are drinking, and then started doing radio and being around rock stars, and you're hanging out backstage and like, you want to drink. And, so for me, it kind of came later as well. Did you feel like kind of a kid growing up? I think we would have gotten along because I went to film and television school. So did you just feel kind of isolated all throughout life, or what really do you think it was for you?
No, it's funny. It's like I was somebody, that could have been my story really easily. But when I was in elementary school, I made a couple of friends that I was like, I held them close to me like it was drugs. Like I like leaned on them like I leaned on drugs, and I used them for my identity. And my school went from when you're 4 till when you graduate high school.
Oh wow!
So I was with these guys that whole time. So like I only really felt that, and I remember like that kind of feeling that you're talking about. I would feel it, but I would ask them to sleep over. Or I would sleep at their houses, so I never had to deal with that feeling of crazy loneliness and isolation and like fear. You know what I mean? I knew it was there. Like when I was a little kid, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be scared to death. But I used my friends the way I wound up using drugs. And when I got to college, they were gone. Right. And that's when it all came out. It's interesting, actually. It's weird. It's almost embarrassing to be so dependent on people like that. You know what I mean?
Sure. I don't know so much as a kid, because I think I can really relate to that too and resonate, because I definitely did that not with just friendships but relationships too, to give me identity, and then I didn't have to deal with myself by myself, which still can be a fucking struggle from times where, I think you've even busted my balls about it. Like, you just don't want to be like, when my kids aren't there, it's, and we're working, it's like, oh, fine, you did your work day, you can leave now,
I love being alone. I prefer to be alone.
But that's a great thing. Like I struggle with it. I'm finding ways to deal with it just by putting different things in place to make me not feel so alone. Sure. You know what I mean? There's so many things that I can do that I used to feel very like, when you say I like to be alone, it's not that horrible, lonely feeling. It's a good feeling.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. There's enough going on up here in my head that, I'm not really alone. There's a lot of shit going on up there, so it's just like I can watch TV, but I'm really not even watching TV. I'm just kind of staring above it, thinking about everything, which probably is why I have crazy-ass anxiety, too, now that I think about it. But yeah, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely, if that makes sense.
Right. I'm getting the hang out of, like, I have 2 kids now, and I'm getting the hang out of, like, is that what the expression is? Getting the hang of? Getting the hang of enjoying my time that I'm not with people. Like, it's starting to happen now, which is great.
Right.
But in school, like, I had a similar thing. Like, when I started out, when I was producing TV, like, all I would do was cover shows, like musicians and concerts and stuff. And I wanted to be like them. Mm-hmm. Like, I had a fantasy in my head of being like them. Yeah. And like, the idea of like beatniks and being cool and like fucking doing what I wanted and being revolutionary, like that shit really appealed to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can relate to that very, very much. So I know what you're talking about.
5150 is power. The power to overcome. The power to persevere. The power to set your life on a course for success. When you're faced with the challenges life throws at you, you focus and do what is needed to go beyond what is required. So stand up, stand firm, believe, make it happen, and live through the madness, knocking doors down along the way. We are 5150.
So let's fast forward again, jumping back, meeting Chris. What was the point where it's like, hey fuckers, let's put this thing together. Obviously I know I don't remember where I read, but obviously, Howard Stern, based in New York, that type of stuff. I know that was a huge influence for me in my radio career. Was it just kind of like, let's just be the two guys that we are and do this thing? Was there any laid out plan, or was it just for fun?
Well, I wanted to be like a talk show host since I was a little kid. Like literally, like I remember I would get up and I would go into the kitchen and my mother would be listening to 1010 Wins, which is an AM station in Manhattan. And she'd be listening to this guy called John Gambling. And the show was called Rambling with Gambling. And he just kind of sat there and he'd give like financial advice and talk about the day. And I remember saying to my mom, this guy's got like the best job. It sounds so relaxing. He made me feel relaxed and I loved it. And then like Regis Philbin, like I would watch him and I would be like, yo, this guy makes me feel so relaxed. And he would make fun of everybody. And
right.
It just seemed like so much fun. And I never thought that I could do that. You know what I mean? Like when I never put it together in my head that I could actually do that. And then when I was doing production, like I worked with a dude who was a crazy Howard Stern fan. And I never fucking liked Howard until I was forced to listen to him. And then like I became like in love with Howard Stern. Mm-hmm. And like I was like, holy shit, I love the way he does it. And I mean, I loved Howard so much that I created a fake award to go on the Stern show. Like I went on the Stern show lying to Howard. I was high on fucking speedballs. But so when me and Chris like were talking about a podcast, it was just for fun. Number one, there was no fucking thought that we were going to make any money or it was going to be anything. It was just, I needed something to do. Like my band had broken up. The Last Jewish Waiter had imploded in my stupidity. I got into fights with everyone I worked with. The company dropped us. And Chris was like, what could we do? And Chris was brilliant and super funny and a crazy drug addict. And then I had this other friend years before, this editor who lives in Los Angeles. And he was like, we should do a podcast about drug stories. And I was like, dude, you don't have any drug stories. And he's like, well, I'll get celebrity drug stories. And I put that in my mind, but I never used it. And then when Chris said, what could we do together? I just stole my friend's idea. And I was like, let's do a podcast about drug stories. And I said, and he goes, you mean like a recovery podcast? And I said, no, it's just going to be about war stories. And it's going to be so much about war stories. We're going to call it War Stories. And that's it. And then, so he came over and we looked it up and there was a podcast called War Stories about like military entanglements and stuff. And then we had this big debate about what it should be called. And I said, and we came up with Dopey, and we came up with Dopey because like when I talk about this, it makes me feel really happy, to be honest with you, because it was just like such a glorious, and I love Dopey. Like I fucking love Dopey so much. Yeah. It was a glorious moment, and I miss Chris,
Sure,
but me and him we're hanging out, and there was I think about the word dope. You know what I mean? Like I love the word dope. Like in the early 90s, like dope as a hip hop expression of something being cool, I liked. That shit is dope. I like that. And then I was walking to Katz's every morning on Clinton Street, and there'd be these Dominican kids wearing these black hats with gold letters, like not like gold stitched letters, but actual letters made of gold or metal. Probably
I know
not
exactly
gold.
what you're
But
talking
it would say,
about.
Yep.
Yeah, it would say dope. And I'd look at this guy, and then all of a sudden I would hear my grandfather's voice and be like, look at this fucking dope. Like he's an idiot. Like dope is an idiot. And I'm talking to Chris about it, and I'm like, we should do something with the word dope. And he's like, how about a couple of dopes talking about dope? And I was like, no, let's just call it Dopey. And it stuck. And it was like, and then we sat down, and he said, well, should we get gear? And I was like, nope. I was like, don't get anything. And I was like, this is what we're going to do. Because I had been like fucking around with GarageBand, like trying to record music, and I never had a mic or anything. And I could record like decent shit just on the Mac onboard mic. And I was like, dude, if you buy any fucking equipment, we're never going to do anything. You're just going to waste your money and we're never going to do anything. But if we build the whole thing just using the onboard microphone, like we've lost nothing. We've been like in our lane. And then when we need to get equipment, we'll get equipment. And he was like, all right. And we recorded the first 50 episodes of Dopey on the onboard Mac mic, you know, and he was like, well, what do we do? And me being this Howard disciple, I said, don't worry. I said, I'll take care of it. You just tell stories and talk to me, hang out with me. And we just did it like that. And like, I wound up making fun of him and he liked it. And he had ridiculous drug stories. And that was how it started.
And it's pretty great because you've been going 5 years now?
5.5. It'll be 6 years in December.
So speaking of Chris, and of course you would miss him doing so much time with him, but his was a pretty shitty situation, how he fell back into his addiction and his passing. So for those that are kind of catching on that maybe aren't aware of the podcast, that, as you said, you and Chris did the show together, met in rehab, which is kind of one of those cool fucking, you know, stories of how, you know, when we get clean and we can really create bonds. But unfortunately, my understanding was he had an injury and then pain meds, and that led him back into his.
It's so mysterious. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know exactly what happened. You know, I mean, if you trace back, right, you can find that Chris, first of all, we have to just say this about Chris. He was getting his PhD. You know, he was going to be a psychologist, you know, working with addicts. He was working in a school as an intern, kind of like counseling children. He was working in a sober house in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. He was engaged to this very beautiful woman who went to Harvard Medical School. He came from a very like stable and prosperous family. And he knew everything about addiction, drugs, recovery. Like he knew all that shit inside and out. He didn't know anything else, but he knew all, like Chris didn't know the difference between like Prince and Queen, like for real. Like he didn't know the difference. He didn't know anything about pop culture, music, anything, but he knew everything about all this other stuff. And what happened was, I think what happened is what happens to a lot of people. He stopped going to meetings and he was dishonest. You know what I mean? Like to make sense of what happened, I can't give you details, right? Sure. I can say that he went on vacation. I only say that because I don't know. Right. He went on vacation with his girlfriend to the Caribbean. They went to a gym. He wanted to impress her with how high he could karate kick. And he said he tore something in his ass. That's what he said. He like hurt his ass. And that was probably 8 weeks before he died. And supposedly he got pain pills in that period. And then I know Chris was a fucking terrible drug addict. And in the end, he had fentanyl in his system. He had coke in his system. He had alcohol in his system. I think he had benzos in his system, you know, and he kept it all totally hidden. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally hidden. You know Artie Lang from the Howard Stern show?
Absolutely. Met him once.
Yeah, the last time I saw Chris alive together, we were on our way back from interviewing Artie Lang on the ferry back from Hoboken. And I was in Artie's apartment with Chris, and the two of them were high, and both of them were supposed to be sober, right. You know? And that's like, it's fucked up, you know? The only, again, a bright spot for me is that the night before, me and him were fighting like for weeks before he died because, you know, when you're using heroin, you tend to be moody. You tend to be a dick. You know, you can't kind of help. It's like almost impossible to not be a dick when you're using. Mm-hmm. So he was. And also, though, it has to be said that throughout Dopey, we didn't miss an episode, you know, from the first week we started till this week. Like, we've never missed an episode, even when he died. But for the first 143 episodes, for 95% of them, he would drive from Boston or Great Barrington to Manhattan to record the show. So like that was a lot of work. And I think when he was using, he didn't want to do it. So we did a lot of Skype episodes, and he would get pissed that I would be like, "Why aren't you coming? The show is bad." And the night before he died, we had this heart to heart because we were fighting so much, and he was at his breaking point. And it also had turned out that his sister, who kind of does peer sober counseling shit, she runs a company that helps drug addicts. I think his girlfriend thought that he was relapsing and called his sister. And Chris was still being monitored by his sister's company. So his sister sent a counselor to their apartment to drug test him, right? So he gets the drug test, and it's the results aren't going to come in for a day or whatever. And that night, me and him had this heart to heart, and he told me like how much he loved me and how much he loved doing Dopey, and like our friendship was like really cemented again the night before he died. And then I guess in the middle of the night, his girlfriend texted me, "I'm really worried about Chris. Can you check on him?" And I woke up at like, I don't know, 6:11 in the morning, and I saw his girlfriend's message, and I texted Chris. And me and Chris had a relationship that if I texted him, he just fucking got right back to me immediately. Mm-hmm. So at 6:11, I texted him, "Are you okay?" And he texted me, he goes, I think he said, "Not great, but I'm alive." A minute later, he texted me that, 6:13 in the morning, you know what I mean? Like, and he's using, and he's up, you know, and I woke up. And then, so he said, "I'm not doing great, I'm okay, but I'm alive." And that was at 6:13 in the morning. At around 10:30, me and my wife, who I had gotten back together with, and we had had a baby, were walking with the baby to town, and my phone rings, and it's his girlfriend telling me that she found him dead. And I didn't even believe her. Because Chris, the night before, you know how like we turn people against people like when we're using, and he was like, "No, she's crazy. Yeah. She's going to say all sorts of crazy stuff. She's out of her mind." And so when she told me he was dead, I thought she was lying. I thought she was crazy. I didn't believe it.
Right.
And so I had a day of not knowing. And then his sister confirmed that afternoon that he had died. And it was just like, and then another thing that I need to say is that I had another friend who was on the show very often, who I did tons of drugs with, who had died 6 weeks earlier. Okay. Like he turned up dead in his parents' house. So like when I found out Chris was dead, it was very hard to believe because I was still in shock of my other friend's death. Mm-hmm. So that summer was like not a good summer. Although we did have a baby and buy a house that summer. It's crazy.
Oh, that's the odd and crazy thing about life, and let alone lots of us with recovery, where we have that happen, right? We get our blessings and things that come in, but yet it's still out there and looming, and fucking shit it's gone, taken from you like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So I have to ask then, during that time, what were you doing to make sure you didn't relapse? Those, of course, we make excuses people that aren't addicts don't understand. Our brain will quickly make an excuse that we can't rationalize to go back to numbing ourselves and checking out.
I feel like that year, Chris and I weren't, obviously Chris wasn't doing well in his recovery. Like he was not actively participating in his recovery. And I kind of wasn't either. You know what I mean? Like we were house hunting. My girlfriend, my wife/girlfriend, or whatever you want to call her, my partner was pregnant. And I barely went to meetings. Chris barely went to meetings. And when he died, I was like, I got to go to a fucking meeting. And I found a meeting. And I got sober in Manhattan going to a 7:30 in the morning meeting that met every day. And I found a meeting on Long Island that met at the beach. And it was every day of the week at 8 in the morning. And I started just getting back into it. I didn't have any interest in relapsing. You know, I had a little kid at home and I had a kid on the way. And for me, the reason that it worked out was because I was 41 years old and I realized that I wrecked half of my life. And the only thing I had to show for my life was a subletted apartment, a waiter job, you know, reduced custody, and like bullshit. Yeah. So like at 41, I said to myself, I'm never going to get higher than I got, you know, and I'm never going to get as high as I was. And this is what my life is. And I have no idea what my life could be if I put work into recovery. I was like, so like, why don't I just try that? Because like I had nothing with using, and I said, why don't I just try that? So like by the time Chris died, I wasn't like considering using. I'm not. I mean, like I don't consider using. Like my life is so much better, and I only have 6 years sober at this point. And it's only because I'm sober. Like it's only because I try to do the next right thing, and I engage in the program, and I don't fuck that up, so like my life is getting so much better only because of it. So like relapse was not on the table around that. Like I wasn't like, damn, I wish I could get fucked up. It was like, just like, damn, I wish this hadn't happened.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta ask, you've had some killer guests on the show. Can some of favorites? I know one we've been trying to talk to. You had Danny Trejo on recently. That was
dude.
Cool
You've had, dude. I've had nothing. You guys fucking Charlie Sheen twice. Are you kidding me?
Hey, Trejo's a legend. He's a legend as well.
His tacos are bomb.
And
we'll
his
take
tacos
you there.
Are bomb.
But you've had some great guests on. You had Rumor, right? Willis was on, and Scout was on. That's right, Scout.
We had some big shots. We had Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
We had Mark Maron.
Nice.
We had fucking Killer Mike. We had some good guests, but I don't know. There's something about Charlie Sheen that's like, I don't know. It's a whole other ballgame to me.
Dude was
who's my favorite guest that we've had on the show?
Yeah, some of your favorite memories from the episodes,
My favorite memory is, it's like not that, it's like my favorite memory, okay, it was like episode 20, and Chris is at my house, and we're recording, and the dude who I told you died, the other guy, his name was Todd. Me and Chris are recording, and Todd calls in, and I put him on speaker, but I don't tell him that we're recording the show. And he tells me that he just got arrested loitering in a building in the projects. And it was like the funniest Dopey story. And he didn't know he was on Dopey. Like that was my favorite, because like half of Dopey was, the only reason was like my friend Todd, because he was so funny and he did such dumb shit that like, so like him just being on the show without knowing it was my favorite memory. Another one of my favorite, I mean, the Jamie Lee Curtis thing was hysterical, because I'm at Katz's. All of our really good guests I got, except for Trejo, I got at Katz's.
Really?
I'm at Katz's. Yeah, because I was a waiter, and famous people are at Katz's all the time. And Jamie Lee Curtis is at Katz's, and she's leaving holding a little brown bag. And like I run out the back door, and I wait for her at the front door, like smoking a cigarette, like I'm Bugs Bunny, like posing, kind of like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis. And she comes out, and I was like, "Hey, Jamie Lee Curtis." I said, "I'm in recovery, and I do a podcast." And she goes, "Oh, I'm a dope fiend." And I was like, "I know." I was like, "Would you like to come on the show?" She said, "Yeah." So I give her my information, and I figure, who knows? And I send her on her way. And I told Chris about it, and Chris was like really interested, and his mother was really interested. And that next day I was off, and I was with my little daughter, and we're at the supermarket, and we're getting dopeypodcast@gmail.com is our email, and we're getting these emails from this woman named Jamie, but I didn't think it was Jamie Lee Curtis. It didn't say Jamie Lee Curtis, whatever.
Right.
And she's like, "So are we going to do it?" And I wrote, "What?" And she wrote, "Podcast." And I wrote, "Huh?" And then Chris called me, and he's like, "You're fucking stupid. It's Jamie Lee Curtis." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I wrote Jamie Lee Curtis, and I told her about the show, and she's like, "I'm not going on that show." And she bailed because she took her recovery too seriously to come on a show like Dopey. Sure. It took Chris dying for her to come on the show. Right. So it's a funny story, because I didn't realize it was Jamie Lee Curtis. And then in the end, she came on the show because she wanted to get her message out there, and she was very powerful. And then my other favorite one, you ready for my other favorite one?
Let's hear it.
So I'm waiting tables at Katz's. This is like my all-time favorite story. Okay. Chris died probably 3 months before. Like I didn't know how I was going to keep the show going at all. And you know that movie Beautiful Boy that came out a few years ago about it's David Sheff wrote it. He was a journalist for Playboy, and his son was this meth addict named Nick Sheff who wrote a book called Tweak. And I've been trying to get Nick Sheff on Dopey. If you guys can get Nick Sheff, I'll be really pissed. But Nick Sheff is a brilliant writer, and David Sheff is a brilliant writer, and David Sheff agrees to come on Dopey. And I'm standing by the matzo ball soups at Katz's, and I'm like, give me 3 soups. And then my phone dings, and it's David Sheff saying he can't come on for 6 weeks or something. And I'm like, fuck. And I serve the soup, and I'm feeling like, what am I going to do? Like, how is this show going to even exist if I can't get guests? And I go outside, I grab the maitre d's' vape, and I'm vaping nicotine, on the corner, and Mark Maron comes walking down the street.
Oh, fuck.
And I was like, holy shit. And I was like, dude, you're Mark Maron. And he was like, yup. And I told him about Dopey, and he agreed to come on. And that was like the coolest thing to me, because I love Mark Maron. I think he's great.
See, we don't live in a place where we can walk down the street and run into people.
This is, yeah. Well, not the people we want to run into.
There's a couple like former professional MLB pitchers that live in our town, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool you got Mark. I'm also a huge fan, and I think that's kind of the pain in the ass thing for us is we tend to funnel through their people. So Mark didn't directly say no, but his people said, no, not interested. And it may have been, I don't even remember. He had something going on. I don't know if a special just came out or something, but it's kind of that you never know what you're going to get either way, too. So, that's pretty goddamn cool. And I need to go back and listen to that episode. I didn't listen to that one yet.
I like to think
it was good.
A lot of the guests, if we were to ask them personally, they'd for sure come on. They wouldn't give it a second thought. Like, oh yeah, absolutely. That are in recovery. But, we gotta, like Jason said, we gotta filter through the, managers, publicists, all that. And it probably doesn't even get to them half the time when they pass on it.
You want to hear a funny story? I mean, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, like Run from Run DMC,
yeah.
He was at Katz's. And I'm serving him, and I asked him to come on, and he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I will absolutely not go on your podcast. But the other day, I go to Katz, and there hasn't been a celebrity at Katz in a long time because of COVID.
Sure.
And I stopped waiting tables. I started doing like special events and marketing there. And I go to Katz's, and Drew Barrymore is there, and she's like reenacting the scene from When Harry Met Sally, for her show. And I'm like, fuck. I was like, Drew Barrymore is like a fucking dream Dopey guest.
Hell yeah.
And like, but I don't want. And also, I had this idea that I would get her in Katz's, and they would teach her how to cut pastrami for Katz's. So here it's like when you have these two lives at the same time. I didn't want my boss to see me asking her to be on Dopey, and in the end, like. I didn't ask her. I found out her producer's information, but I'm sure it's going to be that kind of the scenario, and it's going to get filtered, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah. People, I think, don't realize it's cool to talk with another podcaster. It does, try to get the celebrity guests, too, that people don't realize this is a lot of fucking work, man. It's a lot of work.
For real. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of rejection and a lot of like ass kissing, which I hate the most. Like, I hate that. I'm really annoying. Like, at my core, I'm annoying as hell. Like, I'm persistent and fucking annoying. And like, I've been writing, Jason Mewes from like Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh yeah.
I've been writing Jason Mewes' wife, I want to say for 5 years. For 5 years, and I don't stop. I keep writing her because I'm sick. I'm like a mental patient. Like I do it with like a lot of people. It took me literally 13 months to get the bass player from the Go-Go's on Dopey. Like literally 13 months, constantly just fucking annoying people. This dude, the Grateful Dead manager, I wrote him like 1 billion times on Instagram to the point where they're just like, "Oh, come on, just so you stop writing." You know what I mean? It's like it's like that. And the thing about it, the worst piece about it, is that a piece of my self-esteem is tied up in them saying yes, no, ignoring me or otherwise. Like, that's miserable. Like, that's like the worst, right?
Yeah. Does that sound familiar when you send me a rejection text? Like, they said no, I'm just like, fuck it, I don't even want this prime rib anymore. I'm gonna go.
Like,
away.
we suck.
But I was in
They don't
sales.
think us.
I've been in sales for like 9 years, so I'm used to getting told no. You know what I mean? So when they tell me no, I'm just like, all right, fuck it, on to the next. And
What do you sell?
Oh, I used to sell energy drinks. I no longer do that anymore. And it wasn't Red Bull, Monster, or Rockstar. So if it's anything else, people are probably going to say no because those top three, everybody knows what they like and sticks to that. So, I mean, now granted, I did well in sales, but I got told no all the time. So I don't take it as hard as Jason does. Like, Jason won't want to eat, and I'll just be like, fuck it, dude. I'll just get their brother or I'll get their, girlfriend or wife or whatever to do the show because I read up on them and they have, addiction issues or mental health issues. It's okay. Just paddle out and catch the next wave, bro.
Wow, that's a good attitude. I'm vindictive and crazy and resentful, and I want to kill people when they ignore me.
Right.
And I lose my mind. And then it's then you find a way. I've done so much 12-step work just through Dopey. You know what I mean? To find acceptance, that things are fine the way they are. I'm very proud of our audience. I'm super proud of our show. And we put out a good show. You know what I mean? I want so much. I just want everything all the time.
Yeah.
So it's super addict shit, right?
Hand raised on that one. And yes,
Right?
you guys have done, and I gotta say, as someone in recovery that is badass, is not only have you put out a great product that brings value to people in recovery or people that maybe have a loved one, friend, whatever it is, and they want to understand, or just be fucking entertained, because it is. But you've built a community around it too that it's really cool to see, man. And I just want to give you a huge applause for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The community is definitely the coolest part. It's and it's shocking, the community is shocking because basically we would make fun of it. Me and Chris made fun of all of it. And I would say, stay strong, Dopey Nation. Like I was a preacher, you know what I mean? Like I was mocking it. And then all of a sudden the Dopey Nation existed, you know what I mean? And then when he died, it was very powerful. Me and Chris, we would compete with who the fans liked more. And we would make fun of each other on the show about it. But we never set up a fan page when he was alive because we thought it would be too psychically draining. We thought we'd go crazy with it. And after he died, people reached out to me and they said, we want to set up a fan page just so we can mourn Chris together. So they started a Dopey Nation Facebook group, and there's almost 5,000 people in it, and they know every inch of the show, and they mourn Chris, and there's a bunch of people with Dopey tattoos. It's fucking bananas.
It is, man. That's cool as shit. And we all know who on this podcast who everybody's favorite is. It's Mikey. We all know. I'm the annoying one.
Everybody loves Mikey.
Everybody, Uncle Mikey.
I'm blushing, guys. Thank you. It's because you don't hear me as much. You don't know me. You don't know me as well. So it's I like that guy. He shuts the hell up the entire time. I don't gotta hear him talk.
I'm sorry I've dominated this podcast so much. I feel self-conscious all the time.
It's your episode, brother.
It's about you. He was talking about me as the one that talks too much.
No, not you. I meant Jason.
Yeah.
Hey, I know, but you know what I mean.
Hey, Mikey, what do you do when I talk too much?
Bloop, bloop. Fast forward. Get to the point. Okay, so I got to tell you this story. And I was driving over here in my car. It's a Ford. You know the seats? I like the seats. It's weird. It kind of hurts. I'm like, what about the fucking story? Get to the point. What about it? Bloop, bloop.
He's painting a picture.
Yeah.
I don't need a picture. I've been in the museum plenty of times. Just you got here. What happened?
Too much John Steinbeck as a kid.
But I'm not like that with Jason. I'm like that with literally everybody and everything. We'll sit in meetings and someone will explain something and I'm just like... Fucking
next
fast
slide,
forward.
please.
Get to the point. Get to the point. All of this could have been in an email. I'm out.
Shit. Well, Dave, before we leave you with the last words and have people tell a little more about the podcast, we like to do some fun random questions. This is just for fucking shits and giggles, so have fun with it. You're up, Uncle Mikey.
I'm going to give you the famous Mikey question. I didn't come up with it. I read it, but I thought it was funny. Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized chicken or 10 chicken-sized horses?
horse-sized chicken, 10 chicken-sized horses. I'm going to say the 10 chicken-sized horses.
I would agree with you. And it's shocking how many people go with one horse-sized chicken. Could you imagine a chicken the size of a fucking horse? It's beak. It's beak alone, dude. You're screwed.
You can kick the little ones.
Exactly. You just you punt the little fuckers, but if they get you on the ground, then you're screwed.
Right, but you just kick them. That's where you got to fucking put the boot to the horses.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I hear it, and I agree with you. That's my answer as well.
All right, I'm gonna expand.
Just the beak alone is terrifying.
Oh my gosh, dude! It's the
you are fucked.
Yeah, you're screwed.
All right, this one I'm gonna actually expand on a little bit because you're also a film fan. If a movie was made about your life, who would you want to play you? And who would you want to direct it?
I take a deep breath because when This American Life did this piece about Dopey,
that's right.
And they said they wanted to make a movie about it, right? Like I had film rights and life rights and all this fucking shit, and I don't know anything about actors. Like the only actor that I picked to play me was Jason Segel. The dude from
I love Jason Segel.
Sarah Marshall, whatever. Yeah, that's the guy who I think could play me, but he's not Jewy enough. He'd be like a more goy version of me. And who would I want? I think I would want Gus Van Sant to direct.
Oh, nice. That is
or a young Martin Scorsese.
Yeah. Martin at any point is badass though, right? I just hear stories about how he conducts his film as I forgot who the interview was with, and just like he's like, why did you throw that ketchup bottle? I don't know. The character seemed to throw a ketchup bottle. Good, do that again. This time, don't hit anyone. You know, it's just like he would just fucking let you go and try shit.
We always talk about who would act us, but I'm trying to think of who I'd want to direct it. I'd want Tarantino to direct me. I love Quentin Tarantino.
I was not into the last one. Fucking Hollywood, whatever.
I didn't even.
I love the ending.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I loved it.
I like the ending. I love the dopey shit at the end.
At the end with Brad Pitt, where he fucks those people up.
That was great. I didn't like it mostly. I don't know. Like I want to like Quentin Tarantino. Mm-hmm. I liked Pulp Fiction.
Kill Bill.
I loved Kill Bill.
Okay,
I loved Kill Bill.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, shit, if we had a bonus episode, we would have to do favorite Tarantino movies in order with all 10, right? Yeah, 10 has been done now. Yeah, real quick about that. What happened? So you did, you had a segment on This American Life, which is on Vice?
No, it's on National Public Radio.
Oh, that's the radio one. Okay, what was I thinking was something? Didn't you guys have something with Vice too, Vice TV?
Oh, no, we had a huge beef with Vice.
Oh, okay.
I had a friend write an article for Vice, Canada Vice, just about Dopey and Dopey Nation, and that was cool. But Vice had a show, and I pitched Vice since Chris was alive to put on Dopey as a show, like a TV show, and they never went for it. And then right after he died, they came out with a show called Dope Sick Nation, and I was like, what? And so I started this kind of anti-Vice beef, anti-Dope Sick Nation beef, and it got to I had the woman who hosted Dope Sick Nation on the show, and I talked to the producers, and they said that they didn't steal it from us. But come on,
come on. Yeah, it's also quote unquote Hollywood. The fuck you didn't steal it. There's not an original idea there for the most part.
It's so funny though. Like, of course I don't think they stole it. But I just liked beefing with them. I like getting angry at something. You know what I mean? It felt good. You know?
You're up, Uncle Mikey.
All right. If you were stuck on a deserted island and for whatever reason there was a record player and a TV or CD player, what album would you bring and what movie?
I would bring Miles Davis in A Silent Way, because it's just the greatest record. It's the most beautiful record in the world. And you should, if you never heard it, it's listen to it. It's really trippy. It's 2 songs and it's really beautiful. And it's just been a part of my life in this very special way. Like, I love music, but that record I think is it's called In a Silent Way. It's like 40 minutes long. It's super trippy. Listen to it early in the morning or late at night. It's weird, but it's good. Really, really beautiful.
Right.
3 keyboard players, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, and Joe Zawinul.
Wow.
Fucking, I think it's a beautiful record. It's a beautiful record. Just listen to it.
Herbie Hancock's the one who invented electricity, right? Herbie Hancock.
Shut the fuck up.
That was a Chris Farley movie reference. What movie was that? Tommy Boy.
Yeah, it's Herbie Hancock.
Everybody knows it's Herbie Hancock who invented electricity. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's because of that. I don't know. That's because he had Rocket in the 80s. That weird song Rocket. Anyway, movie. I'm gonna say, and this is a very controversial choice, and I don't know if it's true or not. But right now, I'm gonna say Adaptation. Really? You know that movie Adaptation with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Why?
I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I don't know. I like that movie because like it's so meta. It's like it's about him and figuring out like what he's trying to make as he's making it. There's just something, I don't know. There's something I really like about it.
Yeah, it is fucking trippy.
You're the one on the island, brother, so the movie's your choice.
I don't know. I mean, let's say forget Adaptation. I'm taking The Godfather. I'm done with Adaptation. We'll go with The Godfather.
At least that'll kill half your day watching it.
Yeah, right.
I would want the 3 Godfathers in one.
Yeah,
I would do
sure.
that.
We can lump it together for you, my son. We'll do it.
Very nice.
Very good. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
If I could have one superpower, what could it be? I'm gonna say, let's say telepathy, mental telepathy, hardcore, like where I can make people do what I want and shit. That kind of telepathy.
That one makes sense right there. Yeah, it's like
practical.
You will be on my podcast. I will be on your podcast.
You can give me money and I don't have to work in a deli. That kind of really, it's a practical power.
You got one more, Mikey?
I was gonna say when you're stuck in traffic, what are the thoughts going through your head? But if you're in New York, you probably don't drive that much, right?
I'm on the train often. I live on Long Island, so sometimes I'm stuck in traffic.
Okay, so what's going through your head when you're stuck in traffic or on a train?
There's only one thought that goes through my head all day, which is how do I get out of my job and do Dopey full time? That's the only. I have that thought over and over and over and over and over.
Goals, man. That's good to have goals.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Uncle Mike.
Keep chasing that.
Dave, man, this has been a real pleasure. We always like to leave the guest with any the last words, so to speak, any encouragement. We do have, of course, primarily our audience, recovery and mental health, but some people that just get a lot of value out of the show. If you could kind of lend anything from your life experience.
Okay, yes, absolutely. The most important thing for me is that, I never wanted to be in a 12-step group, and I never wanted to be a spiritual giant or even spiritual. I just wanted to have a nice life. So, I found that the more work I put into those areas of my life yields me having more fun. Don't be afraid of losing fun. You're going to gain so much fun in sobriety. I think the more, it's I hate all the slogans, but it works if you work it. It's it finally makes sense to me, because the more work I do in that world, the more fun I have in every other world. So that's, and I say, don't give up. It might, but then I also say, be careful, because everyone's dying. So be careful. You might not get the miracle. You might just have to force yourself to do it. Yeah. That's what I say. I don't know what that is. It's a very convoluted message. I say good luck and have fun.
Hey, I love it. Good luck and have fun.
For more on the podcast, Dave, how do people find you? What are the handles, social media, and everything else?
You can find Dopey wherever you find podcasts under Dopey. Just type in Dopey and it'll pop up.